Remember when Toyota made a car so ordinary looking that nobody gave it a second glance at the dealership? You probably think the 1985 Toyota Corolla was just another boring economy car your neighbor drove to work. But if you thought the AE86 was just a cheap commuter car, you're dead wrong. In the next few minutes, you'll discover 20 weird facts about the Hachiroku that transformed this humble Corolla into a drift legend, a racing champion, and an anime superstar worth more than luxury cars today. Including one fact about its engine that Toyota tried to keep secret from American buyers. Hachiroku literally means 86. Most people don't realize the AE86 got its legendary nickname from the simplest source imaginable. Hachiroku literally translates to 86 in Japanese, which comes directly from Toyota's internal chassis code. When Toyota engineers were developing this car in the early 80s, they assigned it the chassis designation AE86 as part of their standard naming system. The A stood for the engine series, E meant it was a Corolla, and 86 was simply the next number in sequence. Japanese enthusiasts started calling it Hachiroku as shorthand, the same way Americans might say 86 instead of spelling out the whole model name. What makes this weird is how a boring administrative code became one of the most famous nicknames in automotive history. No marketing department came up with it, no focus groups tested it, just mechanics and racers who needed a quick way to identify the car. The name stuck so well that even today, 40 years later, car enthusiasts worldwide know exactly what you mean when you say Hachiroku. Toyota never officially marketed the car under this name in any country, yet it became more recognizable than the actual model designations. The company has even embraced it retroactively, using Hachiroku in modern marketing materials and special editions. It's probably the only car in history where an internal chassis code became more famous than the car's real name. Two faces existed with different headlights. Here's something that confuses even longtime Toyota fans. The AE86 actually came in two completely different versions that most people think are separate models. The Trueno featured distinctive pop-up headlights that gave it an aggressive, sporty appearance when closed and a bug-eyed look when raised. Meanwhile, the Levin used fixed headlights with a more conventional front-end design. Both cars were mechanically identical underneath, sharing the same engine, transmission, suspension, and interior. The only real differences were the front and rear styling, with each getting unique bumpers, grills, and taillights to match their headlight configuration. In Japan, these were marketed as entirely separate models with their own brochures and dealer networks. Trueno literally means thunder in Spanish, while Levin comes from lightning, suggesting Toyota wanted buyers to see them as related but distinct offerings. The weird part is how this created tribal divisions among enthusiasts that persist today. Trueno owners insist the pop-ups give better aerodynamics and weight distribution, while Levin fans claim the fixed lights are more reliable and give better visibility. In reality, the performance difference was negligible, maybe a few pounds of weight and slightly different drag coefficients. Some markets only got one version, which is why many Americans only know the Trueno as the Corolla GT-S. The Japanese domestic market got both, creating a situation where identical cars competed against each other in showrooms. Last affordable rear-wheel drive compact, the AE86, arrived at a pivotal moment in automotive history that nobody fully appreciated at the time. By 1985, almost every major manufacturer was abandoning rear-wheel drive in compact cars for the packaging and efficiency advantages of front-wheel drive. Honda had already switched the Civic, Nissan was phasing out rear-drive Sunnies, and even Toyota's own Corolla line was moving to front-wheel drive for most models. The AE86 represented one of the last affordable ways to get rear-wheel drive dynamics in a small, fuel-efficient package. What made this significant wasn't obvious to buyers shopping for economical transportation. They cared more about trunk space and fuel economy than which wheels provided the propulsion. But for driving enthusiasts and future racers, this rear-drive layout meant the AE86 could do things its front-drive competitors simply couldn't. The ability to power oversteer, the balanced weight distribution, the direct steer and feel, all these characteristics were disappearing from the affordable car market. Toyota kept producing the AE86 through 1987, making it literally the end of an era. After this, if you wanted rear-wheel drive, you had to step up to more expensive sports cars or larger sedans. The weird irony is that Toyota probably kept it rear drive not for performance reasons, but because it was cheaper to continue using the existing platform than develop an all-new front-drive version for such a limited production run. US GT-S models got different engines, American buyers got a completely different AE86 experience than the rest of the world, and most never knew it. The US market GT-S models came equipped with the 16-valve 4AGE DOHC engine featuring Toyota's TVIS variable intake system. This high-tech motor was a genuine twin-cam screamer that loved to rev. Meanwhile, the base SR5 models got stuck with a carbureted 4AC single-cam engine that was about as exciting as watching paint dry. The 4AGE was an engineering marvel for 1985, using dual overhead cams, 4 valves per cylinder, and electronic fuel injection when most economy cars still use carburetors and push rods. But here's the weird part that Toyota didn't advertise. The Japanese market got an even better version of the 4AGE that made more power thanks to different cams, higher compression, and more aggressive tuning. American emissions regulations forced Toyota to detune the engine, robbing it of about 18 horsepower compared to Japanese specifications. The SR5's 4AC engine was ancient technology even by 80s standards, using a single overhead cam and a carburetor that constantly needed adjustment. It made about 90 horsepower on a good day, turning what should have been a fun rear-drive car into a sluggish commuter. Many SR5 owners didn't realize they were missing out on the car's true potential until years later when they drove a GT-S and discovered it was essentially a different vehicle. TVIS used secondary butterflies for power. The TVIS system in the 4AGE engine was space-age technology that most owners never understood. Toyota variable induction system used a set of secondary butterfly valves in the intake manifold that stayed closed at low RPM. This created a narrow, high-velocity intake path that improved torque and throttle response for daily driving. When the engine reached about 4,200 RPM, these butterflies would snap open, effectively doubling the intake tract volume. The sudden rush of additional air created a noticeable surge in power, almost like a primitive form of variable valve timing. Drivers could actually feel the engine come alive when TVIS activated, transforming the character from mild-mannered to genuinely sporty. What made this system weird was its complexity for such a small displacement engine. Toyota engineers installed vacuum actuators, control valves, and sensors just to operate these butterfly valves. The system was notorious for failing as cars aged, with vacuum leaks and stuck butterflies robbing engines of power. Many mechanics didn't understand TVIS and would disable it entirely when problems arose. The irony is that Toyota abandoned this technology just a few years later in favor of simpler designs. But for the AE86, TVIS represented Toyota's commitment to extracting maximum performance from a 1.6-liter engine. When functioning properly, it gave the little four-cylinder a split personality that made it equally happy puttering through traffic or screaming toward redline. Factory redline was about 7,600 RPM. The 4AGE engine's 7,600 RPM redline was extraordinary for a mass-produced economy car engine in 1985. Most comparable four-cylinders were all done by 6,000 RPM, but the Toyota's twin-cam design invited drivers to explore the upper reaches of the tachometer. This high-revving nature wasn't just about bragging rights. The engine made its best power between 6,000 and 7,500 RPM, meaning you had to keep it spinning to extract maximum performance. The forged crankshaft and lightweight reciprocating assembly were designed specifically to handle sustained high RPM operation. What made this weird was how it completely changed the driving experience compared to typical economy cars. Where most small cars felt strained and unhappy near redline, the 4AGE seemed to get stronger and smoother the harder you pushed it. The engine note transformed from a mundane hum to a genuine mechanical symphony above 5,000 RPM. Toyota's engineers achieved this by using Formula One-inspired technology like shim-over-bucket valve adjustment and narrow bearing clearances. The downside was that this high-strung design required religious maintenance. Skip an oil change or use the wrong grade, and the engine would quickly remind you it wasn't just another grocery-getter motor. Many owners discovered this the hard way when their engines developed rod knock from running low on oil. But for those who respected the engineering, the 4AGE would sing to 7,600 RPM all day long without complaint. Live axle rear suspension for predictable drifting. The AE86 rear suspension was a masterclass in making old technology work brilliantly. While competitors were moving to sophisticated independent rear suspensions, Toyota stuck with a live axle design that seemed outdated on paper. This solid rear axle used 4 locating links and a pan-hard rod to control its movement, a setup more commonly found on trucks than sports cars. But this apparent weakness became the car's greatest strength for a whole generation of drivers. The live axle's predictable behavior when the rear tires lost traction made it perfect for the emergent sport of drifting. When the back end stepped out, it did so progressively and controllably, giving drivers time to catch and modulate the slide. Independent rear suspensions could snap oversteer unexpectedly, but the AE86 telegraphed its intentions clearly. The 4-link design kept the axle properly located during hard cornering while allowing just enough compliance for a smooth ride. The pan-hard rod controlled lateral movement, though it did create some quirky handling characteristics as the suspension compressed. Hardcore enthusiasts learned to use these quirks to their advantage, adjusting pan-hard rod height to fine-tune handling balance. What's weird is how this agricultural suspension design became legendary in motorsports. Racing teams discovered they could make it work brilliantly with the right springs, shocks, and bushings. The simplicity meant fewer parts to break and easier trackside repairs. Today, drift cars worth hundreds of thousands of dollars still use live axles because of lessons learned from the humble AE86. Clutch-type limited-slip differential was optional. The optional clutch-type limited-slip differential might be the most valuable single component on any AE86 today. This factory option transformed the car's handling dynamics by ensuring both rear wheels receive power during aggressive driving. Without it, the inside wheel would spin uselessly when accelerating out of corners, limiting performance and making controlled slides nearly impossible. The clutch-type design used friction plates that locked progressively as wheel speed differences increased, providing smooth, predictable power delivery to both wheels. What made this option weird was how randomly it seemed to be distributed. Some base model SR5s came with the LSD, while loaded GT-S models left the factory with open differentials. The option code wasn't always clearly marked on window stickers, and many original buyers didn't even know what a limited slip differential did. Dealers often had no idea which cars on their lots had this crucial performance upgrade. Today, finding an AE86 with a factory LSD is like striking gold. These differentials have become so valuable that thieves literally steal them from parked cars. Reproduction units exist, but don't work as well as the original Toyota parts. The used market prices for factory LSDs often exceed $2,000, more than many complete AE86 cars sold for just 10 years ago. The irony is that Toyota probably charged less than $300 for this option when new, making it one of the best performance bargains in automotive history. Two-door notchback coupe and three-door liftback body style choices for the AE86 created subtle but important differences that enthusiasts still debate today. The two-door notchback coupe featured a traditional trunk and a slightly more formal roof line that some felt looked more mature. The three-door liftback offered a large rear hatch that provided better cargo access and a sportier fastback profile. Each body style affected the car's handling characteristics in small but noticeable ways. The liftback's large glass hatch added weight up high and toward the rear, changing the center of gravity and polar moment of inertia. This made the liftback slightly more prone to rotation, which drift enthusiasts loved but autocrossers sometimes fought. The coupe's lower, more centralized mass gave it a slide edge in rapid transitions. Aerodynamics also differed between the two. The liftback's fastback shape created less drag, but also less rear downforce at high speeds. The coupe's upright rear window and trunk lid created more turbulence, but also more rear stability. These differences were minimal at legal speeds but became noticeable on racetracks. What's weird is how these minor variations created distinct cult followings. Liftback owners insist the hatch's practicality and style make it superior, while coupe fans claim their cars handle better and look cleaner. In reality, the differences were so small that driver skill mattered far more than body style. But try telling that to someone who spent years perfecting their chosen version. Curb weight around 2,300 pounds. The AE86 2,300-pound curb weight seems impossibly light by modern standards. Today's equivalent Corolla weighs over 3,000 pounds, making the 80s version seem like a featherweight. This low mass came from simple construction, thin steel panels, and a complete absence of modern safety equipment and convenience features. No airbags, no side impact beams, no power accessories unless you specifically ordered them. The lightweight design transformed every aspect of the driving experience. The modest horsepower from the 1.6-liter engine felt adequate because it didn't have much weight to move. Brakes that would be overwhelmed in a heavier car provided strong, confident stopping. The suspension could be softer for comfort while still providing good body control. Even tire wear improved because there was less mass pushing down on the contact patches. What made this weight remarkable was that Toyota achieved it without using exotic materials. This was just efficient packaging and design, eliminating unnecessary bulk wherever possible. The doors were so light you could flex them with moderate hand pressure. The hood and trunk lid felt almost flimsy compared to modern cars. But this lightness gave the AE86 an agility that modern cars struggle to match, despite having far more power. The weird part is how this accidentally created a perfect platform for modification. Every performance part added to a modern car fights against thousands of pounds of bulk. On the AE86, a few simple modifications transformed its character because there wasn't much weight to overcome. Performance trims added rear disc brakes. The braking system differences between AE86 models created a clear hierarchy that affected both performance and desirability. Performance trims in many markets received rear disc brakes, while base cars retained old-fashioned drum brakes that seemed antiquated even in 1985. The disc brake cars stopped shorter, resisted fade better during repeated hard use, and looked more impressive when you peeked through the wheels. The drum brake cars worked adequately for normal driving, but quickly showed their limitations when pushed hard. What made this weird was the inconsistency across different markets. Japanese GT Apex models got rear discs, but some American GT-S cars still came with drums. European markets had their own unique combinations that didn't match either Asian or American specifications. This created confusion that persists today when people try to determine what their car originally came with. The rear disc setup used solid rotors and single piston calipers that were nothing special by performance car standards. But compared to the drums, they transformed the car's behavior on track. Drum brakes would overheat after a few hard stops, creating dangerous fade and unpredictable pedal feel. The discs just kept working lap after lap. Many owners of drum brake cars spent considerable money converting to rear discs, either using factory parts or aftermarket kits. The conversion wasn't just about performance, it was about credibility in the enthusiast community. Rolling up to a meet with visible rear drums immediately marked you as someone who hadn't taken their build seriously. Close ratio 5-speeds kept the engine singing. The manual transmission options in the AE86 played a crucial role in extracting performance from the small displacement engine. Close ratio 5-speed gearboxes kept the 4AGE engine in its narrow power band, while shorter final drive ratios ensured strong acceleration despite modest horsepower. The gear spacing was so tight that shifting from third to fourth barely dropped the engine speed, keeping it right in the sweet spot where TVIS was active and power was strongest. This close ratio setup made the car feel faster than its number suggested because you could keep the engine singing near its power peak. What made these transmissions special was their mechanical precision. The shifter had short throws and a direct, mechanical feel that modern cars try to replicate with expensive aftermarket parts. The synchros were strong enough to handle quick shifts without grinding, and the gear engagement was positive and satisfying. Toyota used different final drive ratios depending on market and model, ranging from 4.1 to 4.3. The shorter ratios gave better acceleration, but limited top speed and hurt fuel economy. Some enthusiasts spent years searching for the perfect combination of gear ratios for their specific use case. The weird part was how these transmissions became legendary for reliability. While contemporary cars needed rebuilds after hard use, AE86 gearboxes just kept working. Many cars with over 300,000 miles still shift perfectly on original transmissions, testament to Toyota's overbuilding of mechanical components. Zanki and Kooki updates changed details. The terms Zanki and Kooki became essential vocabulary for AE86 enthusiasts, representing the early and late production versions that featured subtle but important updates. Zanki models from 1983 to 1985 had different bumpers, tail lights, and interior trim compared to Kooki models from 1985 to 1987. These changes were so minor that casual observers wouldn't notice, but enthusiasts can spot them from across a parking lot. The updates went beyond cosmetics, with Kooki models receiving mechanical improvements like revised suspension bushings and updated engine management. What made this weird was how these minor differences created distinct preferences in the community. Zanki fans insisted the earlier cars had purer styling and better steering feel due to different power steering pumps. Kooki supporters claimed their cars had better build quality and more refined driving dynamics. The reality was that both versions were nearly identical in performance, but try explaining that to someone who spent years hunting for specific Zanki-only parts. The Japanese market had even more variations, with special editions and run-in changes that created dozens of subtle permutations. Some models got different steering wheels, others had unique gauge clusters, and certain limited editions featured exclusive colors or trim. Tracking down correct date-coded parts for restoration became an obsession for purists. Today, the Zanki versus Kooki debate continues on forums and social media, with each camp convinced their version represents the pinnacle of AE86 development. Japan quoted higher power than US models. The power discrepancy between Japanese and American AE86 models remains a source of frustration for US enthusiasts. Japanese market cars were quoted at up to 130 PS, while American GT-S models were rated at just 112 horsepower SAE net. This 18 horsepower difference might not sound like much, but in a 2,300-pound car, it represented a significant performance gap. The Japanese engines benefited from higher compression ratios, more aggressive camshaft profiles, and less restrictive exhaust systems. American emissions regulations forced Toyota to detune the engine with lower compression, milder cams, and catalytic converters that choked exhaust flow. What made this particularly frustrating was that the engines were otherwise identical. Same displacement, same basic design, same TVIS system, but different states of tune that couldn't be easily changed. Simply installing Japanese spec cams and ECUs wouldn't work due to different wiring harnesses and sensor configurations. The weird part was how Toyota never officially acknowledged these differences. Marketing materials carefully avoided direct comparisons, and dealers couldn't explain why identical-looking cars performed differently across markets. This created a gray market for Japanese engines and parts, with enthusiasts paying premium prices for JDM components that promised to unlock hidden power. Some American owners went to extreme lengths, importing entire Japanese spec engines or having custom parts fabricated to match JDM specifications. Group A touring class titles proved motorsport credibility. The AE86's success in Group A touring car racing transformed it from an economy car into a legitimate performance machine. These weren't just weekend autocross trophies, but serious international championships against purpose-built race cars from BMW, Ford, and Alfa Romeo. Factory-backed teams in Japan, Europe, and Australia developed the platform to its absolute limits, proving that the humble Corolla could compete with Europe's best. The Group A regulations required race cars to be based closely on production models, which meant the AE86's inherent strengths translated directly to the track. Its lightweight construction, rear-wheel drive layout, and reliable mechanicals made it a natural race car. What made this success weird was how it caught established manufacturers off guard. Nobody expected a Japanese economy car to challenge European touring car royalty. But the AE86's combination of lightweight, good handling, and bulletproof reliability proved devastatingly effective over race distances. When competitors' more powerful cars broke down or consumed their tires, the Toyotas just kept circulating. The racing success fed back into street car development, with Toyota's competitions department creating special parts that eventually became available to consumers. Limited slip differentials, close ratio gearboxes, and suspension components developed for racing found their way into production cars or dealer-installed options. This created a direct link between showroom stock cars and championship-winning race machines that marketing departments dream about. Keiichi Tsuchiya's drift videos created a legend before YouTube, before social media, before the internet made every car video instantly global. Keiichi Tsuchiya was sliding AE86s around mountain roads and creating a cultural phenomenon. His grainy VHS videos from the mid-'80s showed the Drift King pioneering techniques that would later become standard in professional drifting. But what made these videos special wasn't just the driving, but how they transformed perception of the AE86 from economy car to drift weapon. Tsuchiya wasn't using highly modified race cars, but relatively stock AE86s, proving that the platform's natural balance made it perfect for controlled oversteer. His videos showed regular enthusiasts that they didn't need huge horsepower or expensive modifications to have fun. The weird part was how these underground videos spread through the Japanese car community like wildfire. Copied and recopied on worn VHS tapes, passed hand-to-hand at meets and races, they became required viewing for any serious enthusiast. The quality degraded with each generation of copying, but the impact only grew stronger. Tsuchiya's influence extended beyond just driving techniques. His car setup preferences, from suspension settings to tire choices, became gospel for AE86 owners. When he mentioned using a particular brand of shock absorber or steering wheel, those parts would sell out across Japan. His endorsement could make or break aftermarket companies, all from videos that were technically illegal to film on public roads. Initial D turned a Trueno into pop culture hero. The Initial D manga and anime series accomplished something no marketing campaign could have achieved, transforming the AE86 from an obscure 80s economy car into a global cultural icon. The story of Takumi Fujiwara delivering tofu in his father's Trueno while secretly becoming a downhill racing legend captured imaginations worldwide. Suddenly, kids who weren't even born when the AE86 was discontinued were dreaming of owning one. The series portrayed the car as a giant killer, defeating newer, more powerful machines through superior driving skill and intimate knowledge of mountain roads. What made Initial D's impact weird was how it affected real-world AE86 values. Before the series, these were cheap old Corollas that nobody particularly wanted. After Initial D became popular, prices skyrocketed as a new generation of enthusiasts entered the market. Cars that sold for $500 suddenly commanded $5,000. The anime's influence extended to specific modifications and driving techniques. Fans replicated Takumi's car down to the smallest details, from the black and white panda paint scheme to the cup holder placement. Tofu delivery signs became mandatory accessories at car meets. The series even influenced how people drove their cars, with owners attempting to recreate specific scenes on mountain roads. The cultural impact spread beyond Japan, creating AE86 communities in countries where the car was never officially sold. 4AGE used forged crank and racing valve train. The internal components of the 4AGE engine revealed Toyota's serious intentions for this power plant. While competitors used cast cranks and simple rocker arm valve trains in their economy car engines, Toyota installed a forged steel crankshaft and Formula One-inspired shim-over-bucket valve adjustment. These weren't cost-saving measures, but deliberate choices to create an engine that could withstand racing abuse. The forged crank could handle sustained high RPM operation without flexing or cracking, while the direct-acting valve train maintained precise valve timing even at redline. What made this engineering approach weird was its overkill for a 1.6-liter economy car engine. The forged crank alone probably cost Toyota significantly more than a cast piece, eating into profit margins on an affordable car. The shim-over-bucket system required special tools and training for valve adjustments, making service more complex than conventional rocker arms. But these components gave the 4AGE incredible durability when maintained properly. Racing teams discovered they could run these engines at 8,000 RPM or higher with upgraded valve springs. The bottom end would survive power levels double the factory output when turbocharged or built with aftermarket internals. This overbuilt nature created a thriving performance aftermarket that continues today. The 4AGE became a popular swap candidate for other lightweight cars, spreading AE86 performance beyond the original chassis. US VIN sometimes read AE88. One of the most confusing aspects of American market AE86s was their vehicle identification numbers. While the rest of the world knew these cars as AE86, many US GT-S models carried VNs identifying them as AE88. This wasn't a different model, but a quirk of federal coding requirements that assigned different numbers based on equipment levels. The discrepancy created endless confusion at DMVs, insurance companies, and parts counters where computers insisted AE88 was a completely different car. Owners learned to specify AE86 when ordering parts, regardless of what their paperwork said. What made this weird was how it fragmented the American enthusiast community. Some purists insisted only true AE86 VIN cars were authentic, while others argued the AE88 designation proved their GT-S models were special. Forum arguments raged over whether the cars were mechanically different, despite clear evidence they were identical, except for VIN coding. The situation got more complex with gray market imports carrying Japanese VINs that didn't match U.S. conventions at all. State regulations varied on how to title these cars, creating a patchwork of registrations that made tracking authentic models nearly impossible. Some states registered them as AE86, others as AE88, and some just called them Corolla GT-S without any chassis code. This VIN confusion continues to affect values today, with some buyers specifically seeking matching numbers AE86 cars while avoiding the technically identical AE88 models. TRD sold factory go-fast parts from day one. Toyota Racing Development's early support for the AE86 created a factory-backed performance ecosystem that was revolutionary for an economy car. While other manufacturers treated their affordable cars as transportation appliances, TRD offered serious racing parts through Toyota dealers. These weren't just cosmetic upgrades, but genuine competition components developed through motorsports programs. Customers could order everything from high-lift camshafts to limited slip differentials directly from their local dealer with factory backing. The parts came with professional installation instructions and maintained the factory warranty when installed by authorized technicians. What made this weird was how it legitimized modifying a Corolla at a time when performance upgrades were usually reserved for sports cars. The TRD catalog included wild options like close ratio gear sets that cost more than the car's monthly payment. And two specification aerodynamic kits transformed the humble Corolla into something that looked ready for circuit racing. These parts weren't cheap, but they offered quality and performance that backyard tuners couldn't match. TRD's involvement gave the AE86 credibility in racing circles. When factory engineers were developing competition parts for your economy car, it meant Toyota took performance seriously. This support network helped establish the AE86 in professional racing series, where factory backing made the difference between winning and just participating. The early TRD parts have become incredibly valuable today, with period-correct components commanding prices that would have bought several complete cars when new. That's all for today, folks. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button so you don't miss the next one. See you there.